all of you know, Barbara Cole has introduced some of the most amazing authors, world-renowned authors in the last few years. And so she absolutely deserves the most elaborate, beautiful introduction
not true.
that ever exists, because that's what she gives them. But instead, I wrote down some sentences. But really quickly, before I introduce Barbara Cole's poetic side, I just really quickly want to say that one thing I really appreciate and admire so much about Barbara is how outspoken she is in her support of teachers. And I think many of us here, including Barbara, know what it means to be an underappreciated teacher. And so I just wanted to take a moment. So I just want to take a moment as a teacher to thank her for never forgetting to acknowledge the hard work that educators do, especially educators in the arts, if we even have a job anymore half the time. But if you somehow don't know, Barbara Cole is the artistic director of Just Buffalo Literary Center and a 2011 fellow in poetry from the New York Foundation for the Arts. She received her MA in poetry from Temple University and her PhD in English at UB, and got to work really closely with Charles Bernstein and Susan Howe, and we're all very jealous. She has published a number of chapbooks, and since 2000 has been writing the ongoing long poem project, affectionately known as Foxymoron. After hearing her read once, the poet C.A. Conrad said, "To be honest, I cannot remember the last time I heard a poem that long, 20 minutes read aloud, with that much exuberance and vigilance to the detail-oriented care of what seemed every single word written and spoken." He said that Cole reinvents the road to self-discovery with the poem. So he talks about how there were these individual threads which she kept braiding from her mouth to our ears. So, tuck your hair back and welcome Barbara Cole.
Thank you so much, Robin. And if anybody want a beer, I think we should get a beer then. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Robin, for stepping in last minute to do an amazing introduction. And yes, teachers are the hardest workers in the whole world. And I chickened out and left teaching thinking that I would then have all kinds of free time. And thank you, sir. Big joke on me, no free time. And now I don't get to teach, which was like the greatest joy of my life. So thank you, Robin. Thank you, David Hibonic, for organizing this and for your amazing reading. Thank you. Such a privilege to read at Rust Belt Books, the new Rust Belt. Thank you, Rust Belt. The return of Kevin Thurston is one of the best things that's happened to me in a long time. Not just for me, but for all of Buffalo. I'm so excited that the public now exists. Thank you, Aaron Lowinger. Aaron might not know it, but he's sort of a little bit of like a hero for me for taking an enormous leap of faith of leaving what he was doing and devoting himself to this paper. And he's doubly my hero for recruiting Kevin Thurston to come back to Buffalo to work on it. So thanks to Aaron, and thanks to all of you for being here. And the C.A. Conrad thing is amazing. There have been 2 times in my life that I've gone to a reading expecting to hear one person, and somebody else has read, and I had never heard of them, and they completely blew me away. And one was in 1998, I think, at a Barnes & Noble reading. There were like 10 or 12 readers, and this guy got up and started reading poems about like Elvis, listening to Elvis at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And I was like, who is this guy? And it turns out it was C.A. Conrad. So that was time number 1. And time number 2 was a reading at the old Rust Belt in like 2005, I think. And this guy got up to read and started reading poems about the workplace. And it was like filled with appropriated language from his boss and the workspace. And they were funny as hell. And I nearly tackled him the minute he was done. And that was Kevin Thurston. So it's very apropos to sort of bring up Conrad tonight. And in honor of that momentous night when I first heard Kevin Thurston read, I'm going to be reading a section of Foxymoron which takes up the subject of labor in the American market. And I don't do it as well as Kevin. It's no Kevin Thurston, but it's classic Foxy. So, as always, I need to underscore that this is part of a much larger project. Conrad sort of hints at that. 20 minutes is actually almost impossible for me, but it'll be 20 tonight, don't worry. Anyway, I'll begin with an epigraph from Gertrude Stein. I always, as I admit, seem to be talking, but talking can be a way of listening, that is, if one has the profound need of hearing and seeing what everyone is telling. If you'd like to make a call, please hang up. A game of exchange, a charade of give and take. Could you grab the door? Get a little closer with arid extra dry. Are you tired, irritable, feeling anxious, fearful, or on edge? Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. In search of my first job at 15, I found myself immediately drawn to a one ad with the heading, "Like to talk on the phone," and boasting wages upwards of $8 an hour. We believe in one God. As this was back before anyone even knew the word telemarketer, I enthusiastically applied, not really bothering to ask what the job entailed, and thinking it the mark of some entrepreneurial promise in my future, considered myself fortunate to be hired. You deserve a break today. So he was all, "I'll call you," and I was all cool, trying to act like I wasn't sweating him or anything, but then he so totally didn't call. He suffered and was buried. Our training entailed 6-hour sessions in front of the computers, mastering the more than 100 different computer programs for each of our clients. Open your mouth and say, "Ah." Primarily, we were schooled in customer service protocol, and leave the driving to us. The subtle nuances, for instance, of getting rid of an elderly caller who phoned the TV Guide helpline to complain about the insufficient adhesive on the back of her mailing label. Raise your hand if you're sure. We are so not pre-partying with her, because she totally knew that I had really, really liked him, but she all went and asked him anyway. The Candyman can, because he mixes it with love. Commissions paid in place of compensation or salaries for services rendered shall be charged to account 6623 and not to the revenue accounts. In addition to our hands-on computer sessions, we were required to study at night, memorizing various lists of information which we were then quizzed on the following day. Ruffled silk chemise comes with matching knicker panty. Could you speak up? There was the November for deferred unfolding. I'm not here, leave a message. To alleviate any suspicions that such off-the-clock tasks entailed unpaid labor, we were repeatedly instructed that committing this information to memory would enable us to expedite our calls up to 30% faster, thereby racking up more incentive pay. Did you feed the dog? With heels together, prepare for pliés. Your call will be taken in the order in which it was received. Hey, could you turn it down? The most crucial of these lists, it was emphasized repeatedly, was the list of forbidden words, when along came a spider and sat down beside her. At first confused by this compilation, I was unable to imagine in what context they, the powers that be, imagined that we, capable operators that we were destined to be, would ever address a caller as a pecker, pussy, or prick. It's the chicken of the sea. But rather than confirm that indeed there would in fact be plenty of callers one might relish unleashing indecent epithets at when you care enough to send the very best, instead the training supervisor explained that the toll-free nature of our 1-800 incoming calls yielded 1 in 12 obscene calls. Stand in front of a mirror with hands at your sides while checking for lumps or dimplings. Not all sizes and colors available. On the road of life, there are passengers and there are drivers. Specified hip hugger or barely there thong. This statistic still hanging eerily in the air, I pledge allegiance to the flag. She went on to explain that the list would therefore prove crucial if and when one of the forbidden words was uttered. One nation, at which point we were then authorized, and only then, to terminate a phone session before properly concluding the sale. Indivisible, Class A carriers shall also maintain subsidiary record categories in order that the companies may separately report interconnection revenues derived from We Love to Smile, and it shows. All I ever wanted was to eliminate requisite chit-chat, all orders subject to approval. Does the harasser tell dirty little jokes or show lewd pictures that seem to imply sex with him or her is fun? The doctor will see you know. Knowing the words by heart, the supervisor emphasized, would protect us from being harassed by inappropriate callers and, most importantly, would help us to keep our call expedition efficiency quotient, or CEEQ, at its maximum potential. Mind the music and the step. Intermediate price reductions may have been taken on clearance prices, and with the girls be handy. And so, after a lengthy day of learning the subtleties of "Oh, beautiful" for spacious skies, say, in the case of an L.L. Bean caller, maintaining the fiction that one was in Maine, overlooking a lake swarming with mallards for amber waves of grain, or speaking in a breathy voice with the barest hint of British accent for a Victoria's Secret client for Purple Mountain Majesties, I arrived home each night to dutifully study my various lists, employing my most diligent study skills to memorize the prefixes of zip codes according to state, so that, say, in the case of a caller from California, one could already anticipate entering 9 as the first digit. Such fractions of seconds, it was explained, would save us whole minutes over the course of the week. And minutes, it was explained repeatedly, eventually added up to hours, and hours added up to extra incentive pay. The appeal was always in terms of dollars in our pockets. Try as I might, however, I simply could not commit the list of forbidden words to memory. Are you pregnant or nursing? There was the morning the men removed the trees, not all at once, but branch by branch. We're sorry, we're currently experiencing increased caller volume. With a little press, she is hoping that he will. A little press, practicing difference, she is hoping to hope. A hand, a touch, and his, a little press. Under and over and press, a little hope. A little press, as such, is as much an invitation, tipping scales, a different tune. With a little press, which is as such an invitation, how she is coming undone at the seams. He seems to be coming, to be crossing the room. Have you properly secured your assets in case of an emergency? Extending your spine, head spiraling to the ceiling with active toes, maintain your breathing for 2 more breaths. At first, I tried memorizing the list in the order in which it appeared, beginning alphabetically with ass and asshole, followed quite obviously by balls, bitch, and then progressing to clit, cock, cunt, dick, fuck, fucker, fucking, and so on and so forth. Quantities are limited. A suitable hymn may be inserted at this point. Despite my best efforts, however, I simply could not get all of the variations down quite right. Inevitably, I would forget the all-important balls, almond joys got nuts, or equally crucial clit, nouns don't. Thank you for holding. Our customer service representative will be with you momentarily. Deducing at last that perhaps the lack of rhythm was impeding my memorization, she'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. I rearranged the list, and thanks to sheer repetition, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters, committed the entire catalog of indecencies to memory. Please pardon our appearance as we renovate to better serve you. Covers even your most resistant gray hairs. This is the book I never read. And sitteth at the right hand of the Father, you have the right to remain silent. Backwards, forwards, even starting in the middle, I had finally mastered the list of forbidden words, and thus arrived triumphantly for my first day of live calls with the sing-song spontaneous.
We're getting bombed.
Yeah. I arrived triumphantly for my first day of live calls with the sing-song rhythm of licked it, shit, slit, tit, clit, bitch, ball, swallow, blow, cunt, twat, fuck, suck, pussy, pecker, cocksucker, motherfucker. Licked it, shit, slit, tit, clit, bitch, ball, swallow, blow, cunt, twat, fuck, suck, pussy, pecker, cocksucker, motherfucker, dancing in my head. Your call is important to us. Licked it, shit, slit. Press OK if this amount is correct. Tit, clit, bitch, balls. Choose Mountain Spring or Lemon Fresh Scent. Swallow, blow, cunt, twat. As it turned out, the supervisor's statistic for obscene phone calls proved conservative. Fuck, suck, pussy, pecker. In actuality, 1 in 7 calls, on average, took an obscene turn. Cocksucker, motherfucker. Rising to as many as 1 in 3 during a full moon. In the midnight hours, she cried, more, more, more. Someone's been sleeping in my bed. Undone at the seams, she has come to think of it, coming closer to telling him how she is hoping. A touch as such, pianissimo. She is willing him to call, and somewhere else he is willing her to answer. After all, she is under all a she, a press, a little hand. She is hoping he will hope it so, a little hope to press, to open. In this way how he seems, woodwind or string, genuflections as such. Would you snip it just for fun? Should you tell him he's the one? Despite my initial sense of success in having conquered the memorization task, the list seemed to have little practical application. This brochure not intended as substitute for professional medical care. After only my first hour of taking live calls, Calgon, take me away, I surmised that the obscene phone callers must have possessed their own copies of the list, as they all seemed careful to avoid any of the forbidden words. Thufferin, thuckatash, leaving me with no choice but to idiotically repeat my scripted salutation in response to the filth, flarn, and foul language which came thundering through the headphones. They're all after me, Lucky Charms. Cannot be combined with any other offer. The thing about having a girlfriend, it's not the monogamy. I mean, I can handle that. It's all the serious conversation. It defied all logic. My doctor says my Lanta. It was almost impossible in response to say, put your mouth on my big fat flesh stick. To continue with the scripted, thank you for calling Soft Surroundings. How may I assist you today? Miss that fresher than fresh feeling? As the mere mention of soft surroundings only encouraged such a caller, one could count on a response along the lines of, part your wet lips, baby, my hot salami is coming for your throat. What kind of dressing do you want on that? Tastes so good, cats ask for it by name. You shouldn't have to live with flyaway hairs. Who would have thought it possible to feel relief when a caller finally exploded and the rocket's red glare with a grunt and I'm gonna shoot my load all over your fucking tits, the bombs bursting in air, those last two words ringing out like beautiful music as I gratefully pounced on that most forbidden fruit, the terminate call now button. Make a point of learning names as soon as possible. I was working as a waitress in a cocktail bar. That much is true. It had never occurred to me that so many otherwise innocuous words could be so positively filthy. Tender white meat chicken breast sliced to perfection. Slit and slut had both made it onto the list, though slot had slipped by the list makers. She so cut me off, and I was all, excuse me, I was saying something. And yet it had most notably not slipped by one particular caller who enjoyed employing it in endless variations of, do you have a hot slot? Or, tell me how hot your slot is. Whilst I, ever efficient operator that I prided myself on being, responded meekly if sincerely, and on what page of the Sears catalog is your first item number, sir? Please see separate insert for important information about rates, fees, and other costs. Worried you might be pregnant? Construction delays approaching the bridge. Some of the callers opted for more subtlety, pretending to place actual orders only to, in the final seconds of the call, betray their baser intentions by giving a questionable mailing address, something like 69 Muff Lane or 1 Hot Rod Road. I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. What's your name? Who's your daddy? This water is filtered for purity. Is he rich like me? We ask your assistance in reporting any unattended bag or suspicious behavior to a law enforcement officer. Did you frost anything for dinner? I was admittedly baffled. How could placing an order for 100% Egyptian cotton bath towels, color aquamarine, quantity 4, yield so much pleasure? Much of the time, the obscene callers were simply so obvious that I almost wished I could offer them a word or two of encouragement to be more creative. Last name Dover, first name Ben, or last name Long, first name Dick, being such common occurrences that one could only scoff at the lack of originality. All that juicy meat smothered in cheese. Then again, it was surprising to realize just how many names and addresses seemed simultaneously plausible and yet perverse. Cox, for example, or Johnson always raised one's suspicions. Save over 40% on the French kitty mesh baby doll chemise. I was sure one call could be terminated after he gave his address as Hershey Highway until I found out that he actually resided in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Consuming raw or undercooked meats, poultry, seafood, shellfish, or eggs may increase your risk of foodborne illness. Another time, which proved less fortunate, I discovered that I'd been too quick to jump to conclusions and thus terminated a call from one last name Gray, first name Dick, only to then be reprimanded for wrongfully terminating a legitimate call. Hurt in an accident? When my supervisor questioned me as to why I had prematurely evacuated this call session, do not chew or suck on tablet. Having nothing to plead other than my own aesthetic aversion, I simply remained silent. What is the writer trying to say? Money for nothing and the chicks for free. The difference is spreading. Having tolerated so much, being 15 and not yet realizing that one could be more selective in what one was willing to do for a paycheck. Did you grade our papers yet? One might wonder what finally proved too much. Do you have a stapler? The last straw, as it were, arrived one blazing hot August day, fresh from Arkansas, complete with cockroach killer cowboy boots and 10-gallon hat. This season, sparkly eyeshadow is the only way to go. Do you suffer from bad breath? Mr. Texarkana began by telling us that we were about to become part of a very special family, a family which spread clear across the country and represented the best that the US of A had to offer. Lamb of God, you take away the sins. And with that, the lights dimmed, the room filled with music blaring forth the chorus of America the Beautiful as the projection screen became illuminated with the words, Sam Walton, American legend. Diarrhea got you down? The use of cellular phones is strictly prohibited inside the building. A she who is a proper she is not supposed to hope it so, scales and seems to say it so. Will he call and will she answer? A little press as such, gestures the word as much. What will she say if he should call, if she should answer? Practicing a little press, a touch as such, as if it makes a difference. A she, being a proper she, is supposed to hope it not. For 1 week, we were educated on Sam Walton's life, including his impressive rise to the top from the humble beginnings of his little mom-and-pop country store, Here a Pig, into the mega-million-dollar miracle known as Walmart, There a Pig, and its sister superstore, Sam's Club, everywhere pig, pig. We watched endless footage of rather inarticulate and overly gleeful employees giving testimonials, reach out, as to how working at Walmart had changed their lives. Reach out and touch someone. We were quizzed and re-quizzed on inventory, marketing procedures, glory be to the Father and to the Son, and product placement within the store. We were drilled on how to convince the buyer to use not a credit card, silly rabbit, as a standard practice, but rather Western Union money wiring. Tricks are for kids, so that at the moment the transaction was completed, Walmart Corp could instantly deduct the appropriate sum from the consumer's checking account and begin collecting interest. As it was in the beginning, it is now, and most importantly, we were taught the various Walmart family cheers, complete with scripted hand motions and mandatory clapping, actual jumping into the air being strongly encouraged. In this way, a proper she is supposed to hope for a proper he, who she supposed might hope it as such. In this way, how the word will open a little she, a brush, a touch, adagio and gestures. She is practicing. A she, being a proper she, knows she is supposed to hope. He, being a proper he, is supposed to do as much when a proper she says it as such. What any proper she is supposed to say, which is not, I suppose, to say she will. I am like so totally out of it right now. You have 6 new messages. And so this proved the end of my illustrious days as a telecommunications customer service representative. Can you hear me now? Having discovered that the true perversity in America, do you want fries with that, was not in its speech but in its spending. Hit me, baby, one more time. Having learned that the most obscene aspect of American culture was not its propensity for all things pornographic first come, but rather its pornographic propensity for all things first served. Large and small, purchased with perverse pleasure in response to that most seductive of pickup lines, call now, operators are standing by. Thank you.